Hi, welcome. This is Snowdrops Sunsets, and I wanted to create this video because I have, I've started just kind of chatting on camera and had this part intention of putting these videos out there. I'm also exploring some ideas of this theory that I have in my blog in writing. And I'm learning my skills in both fields, which is when talking to the camera. I've spent a lot of time behind the camera in my career, not in front of it, and talk a lot while I'm around people, but it can be a bit scattered because of all the ideas I've been bringing together and processing. So I'm literally just a work in progress. I'm learning how to best articulate my ideas verbally and through the written word. And the written word, the writings that I'm doing are going onto my blog at www.snowdropssunsets.com. And if you go at the bottom, you'll see my blog called Surviving Trauma Town. And I'm kind of unpacking the theory there and exploring the different ways that I've managed to help myself heal from the symptoms of this theory I'm trying to explain. So yeah, I've done a couple videos of the past couple of days, just little clips because I was inspired to and I was processing things that had happened. And I kind of wanted to get the ideas just out there, out of my head and, potentially into some sort of content form in case I choose to share it. But then the thing is with my theory that I have is once kind of explain one element, there's so many other elements that kind of link, and I'm still trying to maybe potentially get to the crux of what's the most important information to share soonest and when to share it and how it will all make sense to other people who've not had the journey that I have, in order just so it can be, understood. And then I just feel like there's insights there that I can't see being discussed much in the mainstream. Obviously, in some of the edges of my experience, I find these discussions. But yeah, I just want to put my oar in. So at the crux of my theory, which I have called Trauma Town Theory, the theory itself is kind of, in essence, is I think that as individuals and as collective groups, we have actually become so intoxicated by our captors and the authorities in our lives that actually we have, even though they're now causing us massive amounts of damage, irreparable harm, that's going to become really difficult for us to overcome, that actually we are so... It's taken over our minds, heart and soul so much that we'll actually protect and defend our captors to the point of death. Actually, I think that's where we're headed now. I think as humans, if we don't wake up and really look at how we're living, what we're doing, the choices that we're making and what we're choosing to ignore, the Earth's going to have no choice but to literally eradicate us because we really, really are causing harm and massive imbalance on this earth system that needs to be addressed. So that's kind of important. So the best way I can explain that is that obviously the earth is a living, conscious being. It's obviously different to humans, and it communicates in a different way to humans, and reacts and responds in a different way to humans, but it's definitely a living organism that has its own consciousness. And I've been able to learn how to tap into that consciousness, and I'm now hopefully trying to share some of that wisdom from the earth with us as humans. And the earth has to exist in this very intricate balance. Now, balance is at the core of the universe that we exist in, and it can be found in different ways. But the yin yang symbol, with the masculine and feminine energies, the flow and the dots, is really significant and important to me to explain this part of the theory that I think is kind of fundamental to the rest of it. So if we must stop imagining the earth was just a rock, and that the earth is a living, conscious thinking and reactive being. And within that earth, there's two energies that allow that to happen. Masculine and feminine. Yin and yang. We've known this for a long time, obviously. It's in, a lot of our ancient philosophies, and it just seems to have been forgotten. But anyway, some of the videos that I've put out, that I've created over the past couple of days, are kind of just touching on that. And I think actually just to explain that first is vitally important. So actually what I think is going on is that currently as humanity, we are under a spiritual attack. We have been under a spiritual attack for a very long time. Hundreds of years. And this spiritual attack is played out through the patriarchy and the structure of the patriarchy, which, yes, does exist. And no, it is not God's plan for us. And no, it is not a natural way of being. And no, reviving the patriarchy is not going to save us. God's image was never to have any sort of dominant force in the world. Balance and harmony is God's image of life, and that's perfectly represented in the yin yang. The yin yang represents the flow of masculine and feminine energies, and also represents that within each masculine and feminine energy are elements of the other gender. What the patriarchy has done is actually, the structure of patriarchy is an attack on feminine energy. It's an attack on the yin. It's the dominance of the yang. And because this misunderstanding has happened, and our whole society has been based on this fundamental flaw in understanding of the nature of earth, the nature of humans, the nature of even our higher selves and God, that we've created this patriarchal structure. Now, there's reasons why I think that was created. And again, that's like, I was going to write a whole book about that. Like, it's so much to explain. There are many reasons why the patriarchy happened. It is important we understand why the patriarchy happened, but actually at this point in time, I think it's more important that we understand what the patriarchy is. Then we can explore why it happened. Then we can evolve to understand how we can overcome the damage caused by the patriarchy. And it is damaging. So first of all, I think there's been a massive misunderstanding of gender. And a lot of this is because of the patriarchy. So patriarchy being that there's actually superiority in the world, that there's some beings are superior to others, and that there's an order to that. That order can be defined, and generally that order is controlled, defined, and reinforced by humans. And at the top of that structure within humanity is men. So the idea of patriarchy being that man is normal, woman is somehow different to man, instead of which is God's will, which is common, just proper sense, we are human. We are human beings first. There is no superiority there. We are just human beings that are a species of being on the earth. We are not superior to any other being on the earth. And that's something else, again, a whole book would be needed to explore. But just for this video, we'll just accept that we are human beings. And within, so that's the circle, of the yin yang. Human being, the circle. I wish I had a yin yang, that would help, right? I'll maybe see if I can do something really clever on the computer. I won't be able to because my computer never works these days. Anyway, so the actual circle of the yin yang, the shape of the yin yang is the earth, is us as humans, it's also us on a micro level as cells, which I'm not even going to go there yet. But if we imagine that the actual circle, the shape, is that we are human beings, then within that circle and shape, there are two kinds of human beings. There are male and female. Obviously, that happens in a lot of other species, mammals, different things. Again, I'm not going to break down sex right now. That's definitely a whole other subject. And obviously, I am not discounting people who, there are obviously people who have a mix of different physicality in their genitals. And obviously, I want to acknowledge that exists. And again, we can discuss it another time. But generally, the fundamentals of the universe are created with these two energies, yin yang, masculine and feminine. And that physically represents itself as male and female. So the physical form of a man obviously has a penis, and men physically experience life differently to women. And we'll kind of need to understand that a little bit by looking at sex, because a man has a penis. He experiences his life force energy by externalizing an experience. So his penis has to go into and out of a vagina, and that causes the experience. So he has to do something, he has to physically act, he has to be engulfed by an experience before he can feel anything and before he can access that life energy. And that's what makes a man, his genitals. And the masculine element of the male is that he has to be completely externalized, surrounded by an experience before he can feel it. Femininity that represents itself in human form is female. Females have womb spaces and vaginas. A woman, in order to access her divine sexual life energy, has to internalize. She has to take something into herself. And the only way a woman can do that is she has to feel something first. So a woman has to feel something and allow it inside of her before she can experience. Yeah. And they're very different energies. And that's how they physically play out in the world. That's what our physical bodies do, if we're men or women. If we're a man, our physical body has to do something before we feel. If we're a female, if we're a female woman, we have to feel something in order to be able to do it. And that's probably about the simplest way I can break down the idea of masculine and feminine into male and female, which seems to have been confused, I think, and it certainly wasn't what I was taught. And it was so this idea that if you're male, if you're a man, if you're a male man, that you must be masculine is the next level. Okay, this is where the misunderstanding has happened. There are different energies of masculine and feminine that exist within all beings. So a man, a physical man, has masculine and feminine aspects to him. And they will change all the time. A woman has feminine and masculine qualities within her, and that they also flow through her and will change all the time. Some elements of ourselves are fixed, other elements are completely changeable. That is the yin yang. The yin is the constant change, the constant move, and we can explore the qualities that masculine and feminine energies have, probably again in different videos, but it's very important we understand that they have different qualities. The yang energy, the masculine energy, is a doing energy, it's an action energy, prefers order, prefers structure, likes things to be clear, likes to understand, because the masculine energy is an externalized energy. The feminine energy is an internalized energy. That's why she needs a bit more openness. That's why she needs a bit more space to move. That's why femininity has all this depth. That's why it can't be pinned down. They're very different in their energies and the way they play out in the world. So, patriarchy. What the actual patriarchy has done is basically decided that femininity is bad, that femininity is holding us back as humans, and that masculinity was the way forward. There's a story as to why this played out within us with humanity that I would love to explain and share one day. But for now, it's as simple as that basically the dominant energy became masculine, and that because of its nature of masculinity being dominant and preferring order and structure and needing things to be clear, to be concise, to be written, to be pre-agreed, to be structured, all these things have caused the patriarchy to happen. And the patriarchy has been, we know that men have had control of land and power and politics for hundreds of years. So what we need to consider is that every single thing we know now as humans, that has been read in a book, that has been taught in a school, that has come through religion, that has come from politics or law, all of these structures that have been put in place are masculine, patriarchal structures that have already skewed and biased the information because it's gone through the lens of patriarchy, of masculinity. Yeah? It's already been decided because the pre-decision of patriarchy is that masculinity is a more beneficial characteristic, that anything feminine is not good. Even if we look at the term of history, his story, we are currently, all we ever learn is his story, his version of events, because he wrote it down, because he needed to externalize it in order to understand what happened. See, women have an internal space. We have a womb space. We take things in to be able to understand what happened. We don't need to externalize things in books. We know. That's women's intuition. We know these things. We take it in, process it, we know it. We don't need a piece of paper to prove it. We don't need to write it down and have this structure to explain all the reasoning behind it. That is just a feminine quality. So the whole idea that things like law can be justified, and all this deep desire we seem to have for structure, order, control, it's what men need. It's what the masculine energies in us need. And actually what has been happening is the more and more this has gone along, the glorification of masculinity and the demonization of femininity is created such an extreme now. We're literally in a battle of the sexes. We're about to destroy each other. And that is what's happening. Men are becoming more and more aggressive, more and more fixed in their masculinity, and women are rebelling. And actually what the problem is because women can't, some women are rebelling in a feminine way, and I've been part of that, and it's beautiful and it's wonderful, and men will never get to see that, sadly, because a lot of them are so busy in their male structured world. But this is the problem, you see. It's so extreme. These two places are not meeting each other. We're not having conversations, and then the shadow aspect of us, what's playing out, is becoming so violent. And you know, just if you look at rapes, the amount of rapes and sexual assaults on women, and the amount of them that are actually even considered a crime or prosecuted, it's just disgusting, and women are getting infuriated by it. And because the feminine traits that they've used in the past have not worked to try and get their point across, and in fact have been lowered in value, women are becoming more masculine. So now we've got enraged masculine women who are ready to fight. And I tell you what, I'm sure there's some proverb that says hell has no fury like a woman scorned. You thought we were living in hell? The anger rising in women because femininity is being ignored and made bad will destroy humanity. Just letting that settle. the end of humanity will not come from men, like we all see playing out and what's been in all the stories that we think. The end of humanity is going to come from the fury of women behaving like men because of the attack on femininity caused by the patriarchy. Women don't even know how to be women anymore. I've had to spend years learning just what being in a woman's body is like. I actually have a masculine mind, and I'm aware of that now. So that's my experience was, I think in a different way to other women, and I realised that from a young age. I knew that it took a long time for me to understand that battle between us, and then now I'm able to process. I think, I think like a man. But my body is a woman, I have a feminine body. And then actually once I've started to be able to use these two energies in myself, found my balance. And this is what needs to happen in the world. There's three major, I'm obviously rooting everything down to a simplified version as possible because they're super, super complex issues. But the three, I did a video on them called the 3 taboos. 3 fundamental issues of society that are not being discussed. And the reason they're not being discussed is because they're the realm of femininity. Basically, men don't know how to talk about them because masculinity has been the enforced dominant characteristics of our society. We cannot talk about these 3 taboos. Those taboos are spirituality, sex, and death. Because we can't talk about these 3 taboos in a sensible way to find the reason, which needs both masculine and feminine energies in order to understand and explore them, and they're vitally important to humanity. Not even just humanity, the world, like the universe as we know it, is based on these 3 taboos we won't think about. Spirituality, which is the light and dark in all of us, the light and dark in the universe, the physical and the etheric. Even the patriarchy tries to deny that there's anything other than physicality. And the structures that support this are layer upon layer. The idea of having to go to a school, in a building, in a university and be taught by somebody else is a masculine it's a masculine idea, it's a masculine quality. And, that's how our information is vilified, is verified. The fact that I'm even speaking and I don't have a degree in this and a certificate on the wall that says this person is clever and this person knows what they're talking about means that most people will just instantly reject it. How can I possibly know what I'm talking about if I don't have a piece of paper that says that? Masculine qualities. So yeah, religion, even the whole idea that religion has to be written in a book with an order of this is how you find God. It's so insane to me now. I see it. It's like, what are we doing? Your experience with God is your experience with God. And yes, okay, men have tried to take this outside themselves to understand it. And then they're like, yes, because I understand it. This is what's right. This is what must be right for you. Wrong. Your relationship with God is your relationship with God. And then, yes, we might find different ideas from other people, but it has to be an experience we have personally, not from a book. Religion will kill us. Law, again, that's in the realm of sexuality. Next because I looked at sex. Spirituality. This whole idea that... we all know that each situation is different and there's different reasons for each situation playing out. And the whole idea of law, if you've got a law book, it must be like this now. What? There must be rooms. There must be rooms that are dedicated to all the fucking paper trying to explain law, which is just us apparently finding reason. But the reason we can't find reason is because we're ignoring the femininity. Not every situation, even if the situation is exactly the same of playing out, woman punches man in the face. Woman punches man in the face. The reason behind the 2 actions are going to be totally different. So you can't justify it on a piece of paper that's going to apply to every action that's the same. Again, it's a masculine idea that we need to do that. yeah, again, sorry, I'm going off on one because, like I say, these structures are so many layers within the patriarchy that we're so used to, that all these filters of how life is, what's good, what's bad, what we need, it just needs to be completely deconstructed. Sex. The fact that men banned women from charging for sex just shows the power of patriarchy, because I tell you what, sex is about the only thing that women can make more money at by beyond way measure than men. And again, the problem is that men externalize to understand sex. Oh, what sex is you put that in there and you make a baby. No. Oh my goodness. Sex is our life force energy. The fact we've stifled women and abused them and assaulted them through generation after generation of rape and sexual abuse. And yes, I'm not, okay, I know men have been raped and sexually abused as well. And again, it's the same principle. It's attacking the femininity in them. So it's the same principle. It doesn't matter whether you're a man or a woman. The idea of rape is an attack on femininity. The problem being that sex comes from femininity. That's how we're born. And by men controlling sex, the information on sex, about what sex is, look at the porn industry, man. That's men's idea of sex, and it's disgusting. And I mean, I'm not judging anyone, right? You know, we all like different kinds of sex. That's not the problem. It's the understanding around sex. And actually, the whole idea of prostitution, sex and sex therapy is like a real thing. Like, that's how we get in touch with our sexual energies. Yeah, that's how we access our sexual energy and our life force energy, is through sex and connecting. And it is a valid part of the experience. And an open, balanced woman and man, in fact, who can explore their sexuality, have amazing sexual experiences without the domination. It's an equal exchange, right, of yin and yang. Death. Death is a realm of women. Men have tried to understand death. They can't. Links with the sexuality thing, but it shapes so much of our life. Like, all you have to do, I mean, just look at exactly what's playing out with COVID now. It's like this complete avoidance of death, like this idea that you know, death has to be avoided, that we have to save lives. It's very extreme, and it's causing major issues. Yeah. I've kind of gone way beyond what I want to do for this short video, but that's kind of what I mean. Patriarchy has caused all things feminine to be attacked. If we consider just the colour black and white, okay, the yin and the yang. White, goodness, purity, all these things that are associated with masculinity, order, control, good. Black, darkness, bad. And it plays out with everything. Even if you just look at that as a representation of colour of the dichotomy, you know, white is seen as good. A white cat is, you know, supposed to be, you know, good luck and regal, and a black cat is witchy and dangerous. And black and white are now our skin colours. We're actually all just different shades of brown, but we'll define it as black and white. And, you know, white people are superior and black people aren't. You know, it plays out in everything. And it's time to address it. Even the fact that I'm a woman now, making this video about femininity, I guarantee it will be, in a big scale, rejected. Just because I'm a woman. Because even if a man was saying exactly the same things as me right now, his version of events would be classed, or he would be classed as more valid than I. And then go to see, I think I've kept my emotions in check enough for this, but even that, the fact that being emotional is a feminine quality, and apparently just having or showing emotions is considered a weakness. I tell you what, the bravest, strongest things I have ever done have all involved standing up in front of people and displaying my emotions. And I tell you what, that is not weak. We really need to address these issues around our definitions of good and bad, right and wrong. And actually, if you come down to the crux of it, as I have tried a lot, is that we've been taught what's good is masculinity and what's bad is femininity. And if we really do want to create a world where we have harmony as humans, we need to realise that we're human first and we're all masculine and we're all feminine, whether we're a man or a woman. And that if we want to survive as humans, we need men and we need women. And we need men, strong men, who feel secure in their masculinity and in their femininity. And we need strong women who feel secure in their femininity and in their masculinity in order to actually survive the mess we've created for ourselves by separating ourselves and by creating an order of superiority. Both these ideas, both is welcome. I'm not saying we need to destroy all masculine ideas. That would be crazy. It would cause exactly the same problems in a different way. Well, not the same problems, but it would be a lot faster and way more chaotic if we just completely went into the feminine. But we need both. And that's what needs to happen, I think, at this point in time. I think it's vitally important that we realise the miseducation that we've had and that we start to open our hearts and minds into new ways of thinking, being, and new ways of having conversations.